Good morning, everybody. For those of you who are new, I'm Reverend Jenna Watkins. I'm Assistant Minister for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. Reverend Dr. Ron Fox recently had some eye surgery. I'm trying to be protective of Petal. Has had some eye surgery, so he's not here with us today. And we do have a guest speaker online, Reverend Stephen Kindsfather. So we're really lucky to have him. If you haven't already, this is a good time to silence your cell phone, which I have not done. So let me do this real quick. While we are okay. So welcome all of you here today. We've got 3 new people, so it's nice to see you, and we have some people online, which is really nice to have you here. So if you have never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there is one God and many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. The Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles. So whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you are welcome here. I'm your practitioner and reader today, and our guest speaker is Stephen Kindsfather. His talk is Memorial Day in a Spiritual Way, so I'm looking forward to that. And just a reminder, Joe Lombardi's memorial service is Saturday, June 3rd at noon in the Unity Sanctuary. The doors will open. Sorry. The doors will open at 11 and flowers can be delivered between 11 and 11:45. So anybody wanting to send flowers, be sure, or even bring them, be sure that they come before we start the service, so we're not disrupting the service putting flowers out. Okay, and now we have a music video. Okay, so it's a moment for some silent contemplation and then a prayer. So if you would like, just settle back into your chairs and be comfortable. If you desire to close your eyes, that's okay. If you desire to keep them open, that's okay too. But let's just take this moment to enter into a brief moment of silence, allowing our hearts and our minds connect to our innermost, highest self. And as we center our consciousness, our awareness in infinite being, let us realize that its essence is love. And that love is in, through, and everyone and everything and each and every one of us. It's a circuit of love that flows through all that is, empowering, enlightening, healing, and nurturing. That love is ever present. As we call it forth, we can increase it, expand it, and share it, allowing it to grow within this body, this mind, this community, this world. I know this love essence, the very substance of life, the creative principle back of everything, flows through our whole being, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. It flows lovingly through our world of thought and form. And I feel the divine circuit of love flows through each of us, leading us gently down the pathway of life, our lives, guiding and guarding each step along the way. And I know that that divine love flows through the hearts and minds of all those people who have lost loved ones in service to our country. All those who have died and served in our military to protect the freedom we have in this country. That love flows through their hearts and their minds, and we know that each and every person who has made the sacrifice is deeply loved. And I also give thanks to everyone in this community, this spiritual community, who participate and contribute their skills and talent to support this loving, caring community, the Center for Spiritual Living, Space Coast. And I know that especially love flows in and through and is blessing our guest speaker, Reverend Stephen Kindsfather, for his sharing of his wisdom with us, and this opportunity for each of us to have a spark within us of a new idea, a new understanding, a new expression within each and every one of us. For all of this, I do give thanks, and so it is. So my reading today is from the Science of Mind magazine, and it is a daily guide written by Science of Mind practitioner Sheila Thomas, and written in 2018, so it's not too old. And she provides two quotes. The first one is from Howard Thurman. He says, "Life and death are felt as a single respiration, the ebb and flow of a single tide." And the next one is from Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. The spiral of life is upward. And she writes, "Today is the day Americans celebrate Memorial Day, the day on which we honor and remember those who died in the active U.S. military service. As Thurman writes, life and death are integrally related. Death is part of life, and life is part of death. The truth does not diminish the grief and sorrow that loved ones feel when their beloveds transition. Only time can comfort those who have lost loved ones. There is no getting around the process of grieving and letting go of those we love who are no longer here with us. At the same time, we can remember, as we do today, that those who have gone before us are still with us in our hearts and our minds. We are reminded that those who served this country were people who were loved, admired, and important to those who knew them. We are also reminded of the sacrifices they made for their own country. Finally, we are reminded that death is a part of life and that we each must make peace with this fact. Life is to be lived to the fullest. It is, as Ernest Holmes says, a spiraling upward to greater and more expansive experiences. So take this moment not only to remember those who have made their transition, but also as an opportunity to appreciate life and all the beauty and wonder that flow from and through it." And now I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Stephen Kindsfather.
Good morning, Jenna and congregation, those joining online, I appreciate it. Good morning, beautiful ones. I am Reverend Steve Kindsfather, the Senior Minister of Vessels of Spirit of Focus Ministry in Golden, Colorado. And I'm just honored to be here on this Memorial Day weekend. I also want to thank Reverend Dr. Ron for giving me this privilege to speak here today at CSL Space Coast. And as Reverend Ron and his wife, practitioner Becky, take a Sunday away from their church duties, I'd like to have us all collectively thank them for all that they do. Yay. I also like to give a quick shout out to my own wife, Terry. Like Reverend Ron, our wives make what we do as ministers so much easier. And I'm also just holding in my heart and know, Ron and Becky, that this is a special time of deepening and rejuvenation for you. The title of my talk today, as Jenna said, is Memorial Day in a Spiritual Way. So let's explore how our memories and traditions can be embodied but explore them in a more spiritual way. I'm reminded of a story. There was a little boy who was standing in the church lobby, and he was looking up at the plaque, and it had a lot of names and dates. And the minister saw him looking somewhat confused, and so he went over, approached the boy, said, "Can I help you?" And the young boy said, "I see the names and numbers up on this plaque, but I don't know what they mean." And the minister replied, "Well, those are members of our congregation who have died in service." And the little boy's face kind of brightened, and then it fell again. He said, "Oh, the 8 or the 10 o'clock service." So as we participate in the honoring traditions of Memorial Day, it's important to include our children in our remembrance processes. They can learn at any age about the passing of a pet or a relative. And I think that we too can examine our own beliefs on death and dying. In the Science of Mind textbook, written by our founder of this teaching, Ernest Holmes, he speaks about immortality. And it's in chapter 23. In my edition, it's page 371. And I think that's a great starting point if you want to further your understanding about immortality, death, and dying, and to have Ernest Holmes' viewpoint on that. But it's also his concepts of the hereafter. And I don't want to address the hereafter in my talk today, but at my age, it comes to mind a little more frequently. And a sign that we are getting closer to it is when we walk into a room, even in our own house, and we ask ourselves, what did I come here after? So Memorial Day weekend for most Americans means the kids are out of school for the summer. It's a 3-day weekend and the start of summer, a time for barbecues, going to the beach, or just getting out of town on vacation. I know tons of people are doing that today. However, let's look at Memorial Day in a spiritual way. Tomorrow is Memorial Day, once known as Decoration Day. It's evolved over the years, and in preparing this talk, I discovered a lot of interesting Memorial Day history on the interweb. The first national commemoration of Memorial Day was held in Arlington National Cemetery on May 30th, 1868. Arlington is a site where both Union and Confederate soldiers are buried. And Memorial Day remains a designated time to remember the soldiers that dedicated their life to serving others and then gave their life serving their country. I like to see Memorial Day as a time to honor all the heroes and sheroes. I honor all the leaders and the warriors that are no longer on this planet. And there's something just telling me in my heart that we should openly honor those heroes and sheroes that we encounter every day, not just those that have passed. I have a quote from Jenna M. Granholm. She says, "Ceremonies are important, but our gratitude has to be more than visits to the troops and a once-a-year Memorial Day ceremony. We honor the dead best by treating the living well." Making my point of appreciating those and treating those that are alive and around us that we love. All around us are everyday heroes and sheroes and warriors for peace and love, doing what they are called to do. We just need to recognize them. These people are serving our country in the military as first responders, as teachers, laborers, and food bank volunteers. I think we need to thank them and then applaud yourself for being one of them. What is your calling? In what ways are you an everyday warrior or hero? I know you know it. Sometimes others discover it in it for us, but think about how you're serving as a hero. And let's use this Memorial Day weekend to feel and show gratitude for all the heroes and sheroes, past and present. We all have experiences of Memorial Days gone by, and we have specific memories of how we spent them. Excuse me here. I want to share a little bit about my family Memorial Day tradition. It was for our family to go over to my mom's house about mid-morning. And I can still hear her saying, "Not too early." She loved to sleep in on her day off, which Memorial Day is for most. My mom's house, we would cut fresh flowers from her garden and fill a pail with them. A sturdy cardboard box tray served as a garden toolbox. We'd put the tools in there, and then we'd meet the rest of the family at the Crown Hill Cemetery to visit grave sites of relatives, especially my mom's parents, my grandma and Grandpa Graff. We kids took turns using the garden tools and the handheld clippers from the box to clear the grass around the grave markers. And one of us would take mom's flower pail and go get water from a spigot at the cemetery. The water spigot was not visible from the Graff grave marker, but we knew where it was. It was near the end of the curved flagstone knee wall and just to the left of the gray granite bench. After rinsing the grave marker with water, we carefully arranged and placed the flowers in the metal urn that was there, or an urn that my mom thought to bring. Our family Memorial Days to Crown Hill visits, the visits that my family does, they're still happening. But as the years pass by, my family dynamics have changed, and there are additional grave sites to visit. The freshly cut flowers come from my sister's garden, and her children know where the cemetery spigot is, and they've also shown their children. Though we still use grandma's pail to get water, my sister is now the grandma. Recalling those early Memorial Day memories now, I can see my mom's house as it was back then. I can smell the rose gardens she planted and cared for. And I recall the smell of roses in the car as we drove to the cemetery. Memories are what shape our lives. How we are living our lives today is a result of our life experiences. More important is how we remember and perceive the experiences. So if we experienced life from the spiritual truth of each occurrence, all of our memories would be life lessons. All of our memories would be comfortable to recall. If every person acknowledged and knew the spiritual truth all of the time, then in this present moment, right here and now, every one of us would be living in spiritual harmony. We try to live in spiritual harmony, while our humanness has clouded the awareness. So is there anyone here or listening to my talk that lives their spiritual truth or in spiritual harmony all of the time? Do any of you have this thing called life all figured out? I'm guessing not, but we're spiritual people trying. Perhaps you've heard the phrase that we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Either way, we're human, and we're constantly trying to figure it out. However, it is in the seeking for spiritual truth that we become aware of our humanness. This allows us to awaken our spirituality. Our awareness then shapes our life perceptions and the individual spiritual truths that we hold so dearly. Deeper spirituality comes from deeper awareness of those spiritual truths. Ministers and practitioners and those that are doing that spiritual work, we each do it in our own individual way, but that's what I'm talking about. And it's how we perceive those things. So this quote from Shakespeare, it was in Hamlet. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. How we perceive things. Nothing's good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. Memorial Day in a spiritual way is about taking time to just remember, focus on the good in our lives, and release that stinking thinking. As we remember all those that have transitioned to the next life, I feel it's important to find time for quiet contemplation of our own thoughts and memories. If you focus on personal memories, those ones where we felt at peace, recall our times of joy and laughter, because those are the spiritual memories. That's what God is about. Where has our thinking convinced us that a memory is good or bad? Most vivid memories are a result of our emotional impact. that they had on us when we experienced that event. Those things that really affect us, we hold on to them. They leave a deep impression. The same experience can be fearful or loving. Both are based on how we choose to view them. I've done a lot of my own spiritual work on core beliefs. Those are the deep-seated memories, both good and bad. And I try to understand, why do we hold on to those negative memories that do not serve or hold our highest good? Why do we drag them around with us when we could have dropped them in the past? An old cowboy once said, "Past should be a guidepost and not a hitching post." Very simple way of remembering that. Past should be a guidepost and not a hitching post. We all have spiritual work yet to be done. In this designated time for remembrance, it might be a good time to deal with the memories that cause us to become fearful. I know out of fear comes anger, and when my anger gets triggered, it's from a fear-based memory. These memories can pop up anytime, anywhere, just out of nowhere. We don't like it. I'm probably the only one here that has those kind of memories, right? Anybody else? Yeah, I know we have them. We don't like them and we don't like to deal with them, but they continue to pop up, and they will until we deal with them. So if your own trigger of fear or that negative one, you know which one it is. If that hasn't come up for you just by me talking about them, you know which one I am talking about. Which memories trigger you. It's the one that shoves you right into your anger story, or it's the one that invites you back into another self-pity party. So I don't want to go there before we all go into a state of pissosity. Let's take a collective deep breath and remember, we are spiritual beings having a human memory, and we can choose to reframe a memory, the good and the bad. We can re-experience them and change how they trigger us or not, and if they bring us joy or not. Are they lessons? Doing this work, I recommend having support of a partner and doing our spiritual work. And God is always my partner. God is always there for all of us. But sometimes it's a practitioner that can help us get back on our good speaking terms with God. I did have some of you know him, the great Reverend Lloyd Barrett. And in many classes, or when he'd give a talk and we're not feeling close to God, he would just say, "If you no longer feel close to God, who moved?" Every day is an appropriate time, but perhaps Memorial Day would be a meaningful time to have a conversation with God. Find a little time for quiet contemplation and just be grateful for life. Be grateful for all the heroes in our lives. And don't forget the hero that you are, the shero you are here to be. And when a not so desirable memory pops up for us, we cannot fix it at the effect. We actually can't fix anything at the effect. It's just putting a temporary Band-Aid on it. We must address the issue at its cause. And going deeper, finding that cause and doing the work. If we're able to have that original experience while we were in our God-given spiritual way at that time, the memory would just be that, a memory or a lesson that only serves our highest good. When we move into our spiritual way, moving from head to our heart, it becomes easier to see through God's eyes. We then feel that love, which allows us to show up as love and bring that same love to our experiences as we are having them. If we've been doing that all along, then all of our memories would be created out of that, and they'd be joyful to recall, and we'd learn our lessons from them. The more often we're expressing as love and living as the child of God that we are, then we create moments of love and joy that become future memories. So living from that place of love also results in us attracting loving people into our presence. And I think we've all experienced that. people that are loving and we attracted them and we're grateful. There's other people that are energy drainers that show up in our life. How we show up controls that. Think of a time when you were really present with another person. A time when you just listened as they spoke. You were present with them if you were not thinking of what you were going to say next. And your mind wasn't drifting to your own stories. That's when you're present with someone. And there are people that are no longer on this planet that I wish I had really listened to when they were speaking to me. Again, am I the only one here who has had that feeling? I think not. I think it's something we can focus on. I know that I've attended a number of memorial services, and I love that my spiritual community refers to these as a celebration of life. I think that's what it is. It's a gathering, but it's not for the deceased. It's a time where friends and family that are still on this planet can grieve their loss. And they also share stories of the good times, and they share their love for the deceased. And I love what Helen Keller has to say about that. So long as the memory of a certain beloved friend live in my heart, I shall say that life is good. And that's what this weekend is about, remembrance. Helen Keller, so long as the memory of certain beloved friends lives in my heart, I shall say life is good. We can always say life is good. It feels like I attend a celebration of life all too often. And then I learn fascinating things about a person that I never knew or I got to know while they were on this plane of life. Have any of you experienced attending a person's memorial service? And then during the sharing, that you learned something that you never knew about them. It's like, why not? Why didn't we take time, or why didn't we know that? So remembering, that's part of my call today for you to be present with those while they're still here on this planet. And a really good example of that is Betty. I won't use her last name, but some of you that attend Mile High Church know her. She was known for being one of the quartet. She was in a quartet of older women that loved to perform barbershop style song and dance at the annual talent show is when I saw them the most. And the quartet were sincere in their efforts and always made the audience laugh and clap and sing along if they knew the words to their song. When Betty transitioned, many of us attended her celebration of life. And her family shared many stories of her life. But the most revealing was to find out that our Betty, this beautiful little slender lady in all of her beautiful outfits that she would wear, she was a roller derby queen. And they had photos of her and the girls. That was proof of her ability on skates. How fun would have been to hear and share these stories with her when she was alive. I think maybe we could have all been more present with people when they were speaking to us. Yet we still have that opportunity with those we love and those we are yet to meet. A celebration of life and people we listen to reminds me of a mix-up at the florist. There was this considerate man ordering flowers to be sent to a friend's memorial service. And while he was with the florist online and ordering the flowers, he decided he would send some to congratulate his new boss. It had just his new boss, the position, he thought maybe buttering up to it a little bit. Anyway, decided to order flowers, messing this up here. He decided to order flowers for a memorial service of a friend of his and flowers for his new boss. And the florist took both the orders, but mixed up the addresses. So when the new boss opened the flowers and the card, the man's signature comment was, "My condolences." And the flower at the friend's memorial read, "Congratulations on your new position." Because we're human, we're going to make mistakes. The mix up at the florist. More accurately, we need to see these mistakes as learning opportunities. And I want you to know that you are not a mistake. You're on this planet for a reason. And in the scope of time, we're not here for very long when you think about it. So on this Memorial Day, we recognize our heroes, but it's not only a day to recognize the fallen heroes. You are a hero. You are a warrior, especially if you're a warrior for peace on this planet. And here's a quote by one of my favorites, Dr. Seuss. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. Well, this is true of the mothers that are raising children. They are warriors. It is true of our hero teachers, doctors, firefighters, all the people who serve others. And I include our spiritual practitioners. Heck, go ahead and throw in the ministers. And if you don't feel included, then do it now. Make yourself a hero. Know that you are making a difference in the lives of others. Some of you have heard the story of the Dash. It's also been created into a beautiful poem, and you can look it up on the interweb if you care to. It's from called The Dash from Linda Ellis. And I'd like to just read the first 4 couplets and have you think about what this means. It goes like this, and do another quick. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following dates with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all of the time that they've spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. What the dash means to me is not only what we do between birth and death, but how short that time is, how short that dash is, and how little time we have on this planet. It is said that your life is God's gift to you. How you spend it is your gift to God. I think God created each of us out of love. I ask that you find that love in yourself, know that truth, for we cannot give that which we do not have. Love your first self. Love yourself first, and then we can love others. As the master teacher says, love thy neighbor as thyself. So that's my calling to you, to love those that are still around us. Take time to do your own spiritual work. Remember that our deepest core beliefs are created from how we perceived those experiences, which are now just memories. And when one of those memories brings fear and anger, we get to do some forgiveness work. When our memories bring happiness, hold on to them, embrace our good, and live life joyfully. We remember because we care. And on this Memorial Day, as we enjoy the beginning of the summer season, and we enjoy our families and friends, also make a pledge to every day remember the heroes, and remember, you too are a hero. Stay.
Is that the end of your talks, Stephen? Thank you very much.
Oh, he muted. Okay, it must be done. He muted himself.
Or was some other people? Okay, now it's time for our offertory. So if my usher for the day could come forward. And please repeat along with me the joyful giving affirmation. It is in the bulletin. I live in a consciousness of good, divine love, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Reverend Stephen, enjoyed your talk. hang out afterwards, and if there's anybody who has any questions, maybe we could have a little bit of a chat session. So now it's time for our closing prayer, closing song, and closing affirmation. And for our closing prayer, I'd like to read Prayer for Peace. It is in the bulletin. It was written by Reverend Dr. Ron Fox many, many years ago. Excuse me. We gather this day to pray for peace in our day. In this moment, we recognize we are all one, blessed in our diversity, honoring our differences. We may speak different languages, pray in our own way to the God of our choosing, wear skins of different colors, and express our love in ways that differ. Yet beneath all of these differences, there remains an ever-present truth. We are all children of a loving God. So I now speak these words of peace for each and every one of us. Let us come together and cherish the gifts we all share on our beautiful planet. Let us plant seeds of love and compassion as we turn away from violence and hatred. Let us embrace our children and create a world where they feel safe and protected and no longer live with the effects of war and anger. Let us work together to be sure that each of us has enough to eat and feels free to turn to the God they believe in. Let us welcome our differences as we glory in our oneness. Let us remember that the choices we make create the world we live in. So let us make choices that speak to peace, compassion, dignity, love, and forgiveness. And lastly, let us always remember there is one life. That life is God, and that life is expressing as each of our lives right now. Amen. If you'd like to stand, we will do our closing song, the peace song.
Oh, what?
Life is in my mind.
Life
is in my mind.
Life is in my body.
Life is
Life
in my
is in my
body.
body.
Life is in my affairs.
Life is in my affairs.
I receive it.
I
I
receive it.
receive it.
I share it.
I share it.
I am it.
I
I am it.
And I accept it.
And I accept
I
it.
accept it.
Just the way that it is.
Just
Just the way it is,
And just the way it is not.
and just the way it is not.
Thank you, life.
Thank you, life.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it is.
So do people, I'm checking with the people here in the room. People here want to sit around and chat, have a little conversation.